Hello, and thanks for joining us on this month's Mark IV Battle Report on Tried and True. If you enjoy our content, please consider subscribing to the channel and keep up to date on our BatRep and podcast releases. If you would like to support the channel directly, a link to our Patreon can be found in the video description below. Our match today was recorded using the 2024 Steamroller Rules Scenario 5 Two Fronts. Welcoming back to Tried and True is our local kit basher extraordinaire and Pharaoh fan Gatorman Pete. His 100-point legacy Thornfall Alliance army is being led by the updated Midas. Welcome back, Pete. Please tell us your list choices going into the game.
Alright, so I brought my favorite Pharaoh caster is Midas. Now, I'm really excited to show Midas off today because he just got a little bit of a rework in the January update. He has a few new abilities, like he can upkeep by spending his own health now. And a couple of the support units in the Pharaoh changed, which has had a big impact on his game. So I've got Midas with 2 Gunbores and 2 Warhogs, a nice strong beast block to feed back later if it's needed. Gobber Tinker, because a 1-point solo that always has cover is great for contesting zones. I've got Magnus the Unstoppable and his big friend Invictus. I've got Targ, who now is a spell slave. And they moved the Talisman ability over to him from the Bone Grinders. The Bone Grinders, which now can hand out Magic Weapon and manage Fury. And I've got 3 units of Commandos, which still aren't good, but they are dirt cheap, and they're a pointed dude now. Then I got some Slaughterhouses to clean up, and Valkyries for those sweet, sweet shield guards. My cards today are Arcane Forces for the long-range Calamity cast, Careful Recon, Infiltration, Power Swell, and the always needed Savagery.
Also returning for their second time on the channel is the Mark IV Winter Corps army led by Kommander Savayrn. Their 100-point army is being led by Tried and True host Dan. Welcome back. It's good to see Kador back on the channel. Please discuss your thoughts going into the game.
Hey everybody, I'm glad to be back here. Today I brought a Winter Corps list under Kommander Savayrn. He is the nerd of Kador. He has been reading all of Urusk's books and has figured that Urusk was this fan of this thing called Stalingrad and he wanted to give it a try. So that's basically what I did today. For my list I brought 1 Warjack only, and I chose to make it the character Warjack Medveditsa. I figured go big or go home. The rest of the army is made up of a bunch of solos and units. So I took 1 Bison, the 80mm solo. I took a mortar team. I took 4 Winter Corps officers because they dropped to 2 points in January, and I wanted to show them off. I picked 2 units of suppressors, 2 units of gunners, 2 units of pikemen, some infantry, and some snipers. And I just wanted to overwhelm the board with numbers and infantry. I took Blessing of the Gods, Infiltration, Power Swell, Put Out the Fires, and True Inspiration for this game. And I chose to rack Puissance because I wanted to show off the changes between in January when it became model/unit, and I also wanted to have something to make sure I could crack through the armor on his heavies, particularly Invictus. And my second rack spell I chose was Superiority. I almost always rack Superiority, and especially in this army, I really wanted to have that always speed 9 character jack that's going to kill whatever it gets to. So that was a theme that I wanted to play on with this army, as was seeing how many infantry I could put on the table, because I just wrapped up the paint jobs on these guys, and I wanted to show them off.
Can Kommander Savayrn repel a roaming army of Pharaoh led by the Bone Grinder Warlock Midas? Let's get to the table and roll off.
Alright, here we are in the field of battle.
We've shown up, we've drawn the battle lines, and we're deploying on both sides. So I really, really wanted to go second. We rolled the dice, and I rolled a 1, and he rolled a 2, and it really just, oof. I wanted to go second because I wanted the scenario objectives, the extra objectives on my side. I wanted to get a better position, and I really didn't like that house in the middle on that side. So we're talking about the terrain here, and that is what I was trying to form my decisions on my die roll, because the obstruction that's right in the middle, and I think we we accidentally repositioned one of these objectives here, but that obstruction is going to be a big pain in the butt for me. Regardless, we got a hill on that side, we've got a forest in the middle, another forest on the other side, and then on Pete's side, we're looking at like a graveyard with a mausoleum. There's a linear obstacle right we treat that as rubble in this game. Yeah. And then we have a couple linear obstacles decorating my central side, his central side, and off to one of the flanks. So, first round, I deploy my army really centrally, and at the start of the game, I was saying to myself, I'm going to send my suppressors to the left, and I'm going to try and control the unit side, and really put the pressure on the scenario on those two zones, and just try to contest on the right side. So that was the plan going in. To start that off, I'm going to have Savayrn advance. He puts up Precision Strike to give everything Tactician, which is a battle plan here, which I always feel like kind of bad using. But when you packed this much infantry in a list and there's a house in your way, you just have to bite the bullet. I'd always love to be able to put out either the Shield Guard order or the Prey order. For him, they are called... the Shield Guard order is called At All Costs, and the Prey order is called Kill Order out on offense. Precision Strike is what I had to go through just to unpack my army turn one here. So I am moving up the infantry, giving them cover behind a wall, because in addition to using that battle plan, Savayrn also cast Superiority on Mama Bear, and Rock Wall out in front, and then he put up Escort to empty his focus stack to give Mama Bear that extra speed. Following up the snipers and the infantry, I moved up my first unit of suppressors, and this is where I started to deviate from my plan. I had originally was going to run them up between the mausoleum on the left side of my deployment zone and the Statue of Vlad down at the bottom right corner of the screen. But of course I started shifting to the right because I saw all those juicy battle group models over there, and I really wanted to get my volume fire guns over that side. So we're already starting to go right here. But I always find out, like, when I'm playing a lot of my Winter Corps games and KDOR in general, I just kind of operate on feeling as I go through them, and this felt right. I felt like I needed to control or at least threaten Invictus and his heavies over here with the things that could kill them. And if I didn't do it soon, I felt like he was going to be able to pressure me with them. So I wanted to make sure that I could obtain as much board space as possible. Winter Corps is not the fastest army up the field in the world. They do have some good long-range guns, but they can't always get a super heavy unit or model into zones to contest them very early on. So sometimes it can put a lot of pressure on in terms of scenario race. Instead of having the suppressors go to the left, I decided to redeploy my shock troopers, both the gunners and the pikemen over here. And I felt like they would be a great chance to control that side from all the infantry that was over there.
All right, now we're up to Midas. So Dan talked about how his game plan was really to control that bottom side of the board with the 2 unit zones. My game plan was also to control the bottom side of the board with the 2 unit zones. So I have those 3 units of commandos here. Now, commandos have ambush, so they are... before the game, you can choose whether you want to AD them as normal or reserve a unit or units to come in off the side. With those new changes that they have to pick, either a move or an action. In the previous Steamroller packet, that was kind of a pretty big nerf to ambush, but with the objectives being so much closer to the edges, ambush is pretty good again. So I AD 2 units of those commandos, and one of them's in reserve for ambush that is probably going to come in on that bottom side to support their buddies. On that top side, I have those 2 battle group zones that I want to get some action in on. I don't have any illusions that I could really capture the one on Dan's side of the board with Mama Bear there. So I'm really just trying to contest that side and work the middle and bottom. So I move Invictus up a little bit. I try to get him into a nice threat vector where he can leverage those 13 inches. And then I move up one of my Warhogs, or I just try to find a spot to put it. Now, another big change, other than the blood trade upkeeps that Midas went through in January, is they swapped out Death March, which wasn't great with the new small unit sizes, and they gave him Avenging Force. So these Warhogs go up from a 9-inch threat, which they've always had. It's never really been better unless you're playing Carver or Arcadius. And now they're 12. You know, if you can have a warrior model die in your 14-inch control range, that's 12-inch threat, which is way, way better. I pop 2 gun bores in, and I put those counterblast tokens down. I'm hoping that if he runs some guys up, that maybe they won't hit. Their rad isn't that great, but POW 10 blast damage can kill some single wound infantry. So they're there, just waiting to keep that middle of the board more contested than it otherwise would be. And over here on the left, I've got my Valkyries. I put Bond of Crystal and Bone on the Valkyries. It's +2 armor and Feign Death. Brings them from 17 to 19. 5 boxes, no knockdown tough. Makes them pretty sturdy. And then I start deciding what I'm going to do with these commandos. Now, on the bottom here, we do have that forest with those 2 objectives in it. Now, I was kind of hoping down here to leverage the commandos' prowl. That forest will grant concealment, trigger prowl, hopefully make them, a little too immune to Dan's antics than they otherwise would be. But he brought the gunners, and they have sprays, and so I'm pretty scared down here, because those gunners will absolutely eat my commandos if I give him line of sight on pretty much any. That said, I do want to bait out a warrior kill so my Warhog has that threat. So I do put a couple in the forest up ahead where they're a nice juicy target and they're just on the edge of my control range there. And if they do get taken out, I'll at least be able to either move a Warhog up for a big beefy kill, or even just take a shot with a gun bore. Can be pretty effective, because again, if they miss, it's still a POW 10. It's not bad. So there they go, hopping into the forest, making sure everything's in 2 inches. I do think the new unit movement as a Mark IV did a lot for units that have very short ranged attacks. Like, they have range 6 grenades, which was a pretty short threat, in previous editions of the game, but with that extra place of the unit, they become a lot more usable than they were. Now I gotta look at Mama Bear. She's big, she's scary. I have another heavy over here. I'm trying to figure out my plan going forward for the next couple turns. Right now he's kind of boxed in by Invictus, but that's okay, because he's kind of there just to, if something hits Invictus, to hit it back and try to recoup some losses. My Valkyries, figuring out where to put them, trying to put them in shield guard range of a couple of things. Again, I want to bait that Avenging Force. So if I grab a shield guard off something that normally wouldn't trigger it, that accomplishes that for me as well. And then I have my Bone Grinders here, and they're not quite needed, so I'm gonna keep them in the back for now. Bone Grinders also have a slightly longer threat than some Pharaoh, because they do have Bloodthirst, like the Gators. They get that extra 2 inches versus living. Reposition Magnus. He's going to put the usual buff on his buddy Invictus. Hang out back there. And move Targ around. Try to get him in position where maybe he can Spell Slate the Hex Blast next turn. And put my 1-point solo there, and he's always got cover, so don't need him behind the wall.
Alright. We're on to my second turn, and that means this is about time that the mistakes start to happen. So I'm going to upkeep 2 spells here. I'm going to upkeep Escort and Superiority, and I'm going to drop that Rock Wall. I've had a lot of hard times so far adjusting to the new Steamroller scenarios, and sometimes I feel like I kind of go tunnel vision or get a little blind to some of the objectives. And right now I have Mama Bear kind of controlling the objective that's on my side of the field, and I really should have kept her kind of nailed to that post. But as I'm planning this turn out and kind of reacting to how things are unfolding, I'm going to end up moving her out of position, which is going to be a mistake later on, or is going to prove to be a mistake as the game unfolds, I think. I need to make sure I do something about these commandos down here, which is why I redeployed the gunners over here. I thought with the terrain and the forest there, the suppressors are just not going to be able to get the job done on that flank. So that was another reason why I initially kind of redeployed. I feel like the suppressors wouldn't die, but they would also never be able to control that area because they wouldn't hit those commandos in the forest or in melee combat. So overall, the turn plan is going to be that I'm going to try and press forward into the middle, and I'm going to see if I can present my infantry unit as like a trade-off piece. And if he comes in and takes that away, then I can maybe kill whatever he takes, whatever he used to kill it. I'm going to try and get them up the middle and protect them with that forest. And I definitely completely ignored the fact that he put down Counterblast. My whole plan here was to use the tough command card on them. I think it's True Inspiration. Yeah. And I should have played it prior to moving. But, even as we were talking about it, I just went ahead and started moving miniatures, and he's like, okay, we're going to get some Counterblast here. And I'm like, oh, don't. We're going to come back to this in a little second. I accidentally didn't put the flag down. As Pete had said earlier, we're not hitting these guys, right? We're just doing PAL 10 blast damage. So there's no chance the flag could have been caught in one of these blast damages. You'll see me put it back down in the forest. We had moved over to his rolls too quickly, and I had not placed that last model. And this is where I was like, man, I didn't even see those tokens. He's like, they were there. You just... But you got to pay attention to the effects that your opponents put in play, or else they can cost you miniatures. So that was my bad. So here we're putting the flag down, and the plan is to try and just be in the forest, be hard to kill, and be close enough to another grunt that I can use take up. I'm going to try and start dinging up that warhog with my auto fire guns on the infantry. And this is when he shield guards, and I do like 1 damage to a Valkyrie, and I was like, oh, there's the Avenging Force trigger. Great. So I originally was not going to fight the 2 ambush models, or what are they? The commando models that are in the forest on the flank, that are in his control area. I was going to leave them alone, but I've already triggered it now, so I figure time to send in some gunners and go ham. A lot of the rest of this turn is going to be me trying to figure out, I did some good damage on that Warhog. How much more damage can it really do? And here's where I get like really greedy eyes. I'm like, I'm going to use this wall of infantry to draw in Invictus, and I'm going to trade like my unit of suppressors and my unit of infantry, and I'm going to kill this Warhog, and I'm going to put Mama Bear right behind this line of defense, and then when Invictus comes in and threshers, I'm going to go scrap him with Mama Bear, and it's going to feel excellent. And I pulled Mama Bear away from the scoring position, and I really needed to keep her there. When you're going first, you really need to keep an eye on making sure that you can try to score at least 1 point on the second player's second turn. I feel that really helps you be staying in the game competitively with your scenario presence. And I did have enough stuff in front that I could prevent him from getting there and contesting it without at least losing some pieces that he didn't want to. But the mistake was that I didn't leave something there to control it. I've got a bison on that side of the field, but it's only a solo. It's not a proper battle engine, so it can't actually control the 50s. Over here, we're starting to engage with the gunners. I moved up the unit, and I tried to line up some sprays on the guys in the forest. And this is where we start discussing the commando unit and the rules. They have feigned death, so even if I can shoot these guys, if I can get 2 in a spray, once one of them makes a tough check and gets knocked down, then they can't be shot at anymore. Regardless, I managed to clear 2 in the forest with some lucky shots, and the other 2 I also shot at because I've already triggered Avenging Force, so I might as well try to kill the guys that are in his control range now. So I line up my last couple shots on them, and then repo the gunners around to what I felt like might be a better position, might make it so that they couldn't get charged by the remainder of the models behind the forest. You can see all the knockdown tokens going down now from the tough checks that everybody made, and I just tried to use the repo to shield the rest of my units a little bit. We got that.
You do manage to sidestep the feigned death a little bit, because even if you can't target one dude, if you spray another guy and still catch that guy who's on the ground, it does work.
Yeah, because you targeted somebody else, correct. Here we are moving up the officers. These guys are really great. They're steel at 2 points. I would take them at 3 points. I don't know why they went down in cost, but I'm going to laugh it all the way to the bank, Pete. Their 3 battle plans are excellent, and I'm going to try and make as much use of them as possible this game. March gives things Pathfinder. I need that to get my suppressors places. And in this particular game, I'm going to try and make a lot of use out of standard ground, which gives something set defense. Infantry, being Def 13, naturally, going up to a 15 against a charge. Sometimes models can only get to you with a charge, and sometimes they can only... you'll get one swing. So if they miss that charge, then that's going to be rough for them. Here we are moving up the last 2 suppressors. I managed to sneak one in range and not in the acid pool, and we just start unloading our guns once again onto that war pig. And I think right at the end of the string of attacks, I managed to bring it down right to the box, and it felt so good in that moment. Just ripping that battle group model right off the table so early in the game. And I'm just really cheering myself on here because I've got this semicircle of suppressors set up and a nice landing spot where Invictus can come in and plow through all the scatter terrain and just be right there and wave his white t-shirt around and above his head and smack a couple models. And I'm setting the bait so hard for this. I really wanted it to happen. Finally, at the end of the turn, I should mention Savayrn used Precision Strike again this turn as his battle plan, because there was no way I was going to unpack this army again with that house in the way and not be able to move through things. So finally, I'm moving up some of the snipers, and we're getting them into position on the hill, just taking some pot shots at things, and then repoing to be as safe as possible. I tried to put the dog up on top of this hill here and just kind of get it out of the way and try to make sure it's not as threatening of a piece. I really want to try and keep that dog alive, and I probably should have ended up placing it further back. I always feel nervous about placing those dogs because that mark target ability that they have is so important to Khador's ability to kind of reach out and touch things early on, or to sync the good status effects that they have on their guns onto things. Finally, I'm going to run up that mortar onto the hill. Hill right behind that statue seems like a great place for that thing to start mowing down any of those Pharaoh that are left that are trying to control the left side of the board there. My left side, bottom screen. Last but not least, I ran up I advanced up the remaining shock troopers. On my left side, it was the gunners. I walked them because I wanted to reposition them. And then over here, I ran up the pikemen, trying to make sure that I could at least have the pikemen staying out of threat range. And I'm having this bison just drive straight through that forest. figuring I can try to get shots through that lane, like in between that acid pond and the statue and the graveyard area. That seemed like a great field of fire to place that bison, so I wanted to have it kind of lock down the side of the board and maybe come in to sweep up after if I lost my suppressors for some reason. So now we've got a whole lot of infantry models on the non-infantry side of the board. Over to you, Pete.
All right, Midas is back in action. I see the bait, and I recognize it as bait, and I want the bait. I want the bait very, very badly. so a lot of the beginning of this turn is figuring out where my charge lane is for Invictus, how far up I can get, and how much I can get in that Thresher if I want it. Or if the Thresher isn't juicy enough, a lot of times with Invictus, it's better just to go for all 4 initials. He's got the flail, he's got the saw, he's got the spray, he's got the cannon, and it's really tempting to want to use that Thresher every time. But often the right move is just to take all your initials. I do take my Avenging Force shot here. My Gunbore moves over to the side. And he takes a little pop shot and tries to kill some of these guys.
Yeah, shield guarded that.
Yeah, it was a little less effective than I wanted because of the shield guard, but I still took one model off the table, which I'll take. And
I had to shield guard that. I had to keep those guys alive. They're important for dealing with your infantry down there.
Absolutely. And now we're in the tank. There's a lot of things I want to get done this turn. I want that Invictus play, of course. I need to do something to these infantry in the middle here. That little flash on my phone was Midas using Blood Trade to maintain all his upkeeps. Really a great change for him. He wants to cast Calamity, he wants to cast Hex Blast, he wants to throw Battle Lust out, and being able to reliably every turn have a full 7 Fury is great. So I ambush my 3rd unit of commandos over here on the right. They do have to choose between attack or movement, but there is one shock trooper that's within range. Now, shock troopers are blast resist, so I'm not going to get that guy behind him. POW 8's rolling 1 die just isn't going to do it. But I think out of 5 attacks, I can kill the one guy with the direct 12s. So I want this Invictus play. I want to do something with those commandos, and I gotta clear out the middle here to try and score that solo objective in the middle.
I want you to make this charge so bad, I'm handing you whatever measuring tools you need. It's like, here, do you need this? Do you need this proxy base? Take this proxy
I
base.
lost my 10 for like a good 15 minutes of this game. So we're figuring that out. I do have, for that middle zone, if I can clear it, I've got my Tinker waiting right there. And I don't think, again, I have any hope of scoring the battle group objective on Dan's side of the table there. But I do have my Warhog on my side, so that's going to be a free objective for me this turn at least, because turn 2, second player, first scoring turn. So here are my grenade shots going out from the commandos. They're far enough away from the action that any buffs or debuffs I would be to throw out from my caster don't really matter, so I can do them first, see how that pans out, and go with the rest of my turn from there. It does take every single shot. I had a couple misses, I had a couple low damage rolls, but the 5 of them do manage to take out the one shock trooper by the end of their turn. Alright, then we've got these guys. Now I want to clear these other 2 shock troopers, because if I can get these zones cleared and move up one of my commando units, I can score both of these zones. The real messy part is that you have to have the entire unit in the zone, and just because of how far this unit I'm moving currently was able to go, even with Pathfinder, that one guy isn't going to be close enough to the top zone. So it's going to be the responsibility of that other crew that has 3 out of 4 dudes knocked down to try and position their entire squad in the middle, but also somehow do that and also have his shock troopers cleared out, which is going to take a little gymnastics for me to have a chance of doing. So we're trying to figure out exactly how far I could move this guy in the back, plan if I can kill these dudes, where he's going to position, and then we start taking a couple shots. Now they do have their grenades. Again, the shock troopers are blast resist, so if I miss and I get that auto blast damage, it's not going to do anything to them. They're what, armor 16, Dan?
Armor 15.
15, 5 boxes blast resist. If I don't get a direct hit, it's not going to do.
Yeah, that actually comes up later. The other kind, the ones with the spears and the shields, are 16 base because they have that shield.
Mm. And they have a shield wall too, right?
Yes. So under that, it'll take their armor up even higher.
I stare lovingly into the eyes of my Pharaoh commandos. Try to figure out exactly how they're doing.
This engagement on this flank, man, defines this entire game, though. So it's like really important, the positioning of each of the models.
Yeah, I don't think we mentioned yet, but in 2 fronts, there's kind of a mirror match going on, right? You've got the 2 battle group zones on top and the 2 unit zones on the bottom. And the reason that's so important is because on either side, if you control both of the zones, you get the points for those zones, but you also get an additional 2 points for having both. So, if I can score both unit zones there, that's 4 points. That is huge for the game, and that's what you do this scenario. That's the entire point. Now I don't do enough damage with my active group of commandos down there, so I do have to commit the Valkyries. This is a little risky because they are my only shield guards, but they have those little pop guns, so they take a shot. This guy is engaged, so his defense is kind of high, but I luck out. I get some really good rolls. Not that one, but I get some really good hit rolls. Nice 11 there.
There it is.
So they make contact. They do enough damage, and they do manage to take out this one guy. Yeah. Oof.
On the last shot, too.
If that hadn't panned out, I was going to have to commit one of my gun bores, which likely would have killed some of my commandos, which I would have been willing to do, for sure, but definitely nice that it didn't have to come to that. That's a Khador thing, blowing up your own guys. That's Stalingrad. The Pharaoh trying to have a little more respect for the life of their dudes. Not really. We've seen Arcadius.
Yeah, the difference is the Khador guys usually survive.
They're blasters. They're like, fine, this is okay. It's
another grenade.
It's like your party members in D&D when you're throwing fireballs. It's like, he's fine. He's a paladin.
The wizard doesn't want to hear about splash damage.
So now I take one of my gun boards out. I target this dog on the hill, because the 2 closest guys to him are that mortar and his officer. And I can boost blast damage and hopefully take that mortar out, because he scares me a little bit, especially with those commandos. So I do hit the dog, on the hill. I think he's defense 15. But War Beast can boost 16. But War Beast boost, you need a 10. That's not out of the question, and it happens. The blast damage comes through for me, and the tough checks don't save them this time. So I managed to clear a little bit more off that side and make my commandos a little more secure in what they're trying to do with that double zone. Then we're up at Invictus again. So the complication up here... So
juicy.
The complication here is that Invictus is squarely in that role, right? He doesn't get a benefit from it because he is an 80 mil, but he doesn't have native Pathfinder, And even though I have the Pathfinder card, I can't actually use that on him until it's his activation. Which means when Magnus goes to Energizer and get that extra 2-inch, that 2 inch was reduced to 1 for going through the rough terrain. Negative 2 inches for going through rough terrain, but minimum of 1. So he gets a 1-inch Energizer. Changes that angle a little bit. Which means if I do get Invictus in, those suppressors towards the back there, I'm not getting that whole juicy field with the single wound dudes in the middle and everything. But I still kind of feel like it's worth it. If Mama Bear does kill Invictus, I've got that Warhog behind him, so I'll be taking her out. I think a Warhog and a Calamity could easily get her if I needed to. So I energize her Invictus. I wrap up Magnus's activation down there. He's kind of boxed in. He doesn't really have a great angle to shoot his rocket, but that's okay. I'm fine keeping him safe for late game. And then it's time for our big boy.
Oh Lord, he coming!
Oh Lord, he coming! No, he's big. He's not angry because he's a construct, but he's coming to play. And again, as an 80 mil, he does destroy scatter when he goes through it. So he doesn't have to worry about that statue, that little bump in the acid water over there is also scatter, so he wasn't worried about that if that was the angle he wanted. So he charges in. He's got that full 3 stack from Magnus topping him off. He spends 1 for the extra reach, runs the charge on one of the suppressors. And
I love that giant anchor you customized him with.
Straight from a Sea King, man. The Invictus is everything I always wanted the Sea King to be. He's just so good. He reaches through the lines with that 3-inch and just pops heavies, pops high armor things. Invictus, even though he doesn't get a lot of direct support from Pharaoh. I mean, there's debuffs. You can buff Magnus's armor. There's little things. But there's not a single beast in the entire army that has a melee range greater than 1. So he fills a really nice hole in their capabilities. It's going to be a little bit of a choice between him and Carver going forward, because there's also some fun stuff I'll be able to do with Big Pig. But Invictus has proven that he's a nice addition to what Pharaoh needed. So I did my initials. I pinged some damage on these guys, but they have a couple of hit points left, so the charge didn't quite do what I wanted it to. But I do get a spray off. I set a few guys on fire, so we'll have POW 12s coming next turn to finish them off if I need it. What's their armor, Dan? 19?
Yeah, the suppressors have a 19 base.
10 boxes?
Correct.
Yep. Yeah, so they're pretty beefy. So the fire probably isn't going to damage them, but maybe. If there's 1 or 2 health, it's got potential. Then I've got my cannon shot. I hit him. He kind of scanned the knockdown rules, because it does make himself a blast target. The rule says model hit. I'm not really sure if we played that right, to be honest, Dan. I think that might be something we'll have to look into for a future play. But regardless, the suppressor himself is immune to knockdown, so it doesn't come up on that end.
Yeah, I think the concern was we didn't want Invictus knocking himself down, right?
Yeah, but if that might just be a risk that he's got to deal with. We'll have to figure out what the correct answer to that is. Us Winter Corps
players always like to complain about that one Warjack that'll freeze itself if it crits an AoE while it's in melee. Oof.
That's amazing. So he buys some attacks, he kills a couple guys, but there's still way too many suppressors there. Now I do have my Slaughterhousers here. Slaughterhousers, POW 12. They have finisher, so if something's got damage, they become weapon masters. And Midas does go, and he pops Battle Lust on them. So if they do get a charge on something that's damaged, that's 5 dice on a POW 12. it's pretty good. Unfortunately, the suppressors are not in charge range, so I kind of have to play the game where I put my one Slaughterhouser up and charge one of his single wound infantry, and then place the rest of them into melee range, and kind of get a quote-unquote charge damage out of it with Battle Lust. Up here, I bring my my Gunbore forward. He throws a couple punches. They gained in the Mark IV transition that dual attack, like a lot of these mixed use Beasts and Jacks did, and it really has done a lot for them. I think Pharaoh are pretty good in the new packet because they've always been very good at skirmishing. They across the board, they've all got like little ranged attacks, extra melee attacks. Like they might not be able to do a single thing super well across the board, but they all always have options, and that's kind of gained value with these new zones, in my opinion.
In that engagement in the forest, I was trying to use Take Up to try and prevent you from killing everything in melee with your initials to stop you from making a gunshot.
Yeah, that would have worked, right? If I hadn't...
They have 3 initials, though?
Yeah. I got a hit on the first 2, because that third one is the gun. So here come the Slaughterhousers. They house that single wound guy. And then the other 4 try to do some damage. Not a great roll on that one. Couple 1s, doesn't feel great. But it's still decent damage. Still a couple points there.
Oh, the suppressors are all dinged up for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if anyone at home is counting, but that was 0 tough checks made on the Winter Corps.
Here they go. Finisher does some work.
Oh yeah, Finisher is brutal, man. You gotta fear the Slaughterhousers with an armor list, especially. The fact that they just walked up, they're not even getting charges, but the suppressors got all dinged up, and wham, they slam into them. They hurt a lot.
They do struggle. If they were going into... We actually played this very early in Mark IV. I had a Midas list where I had like 15 Slaughterhousers, and I tried to charge them into your suppressors, and it did nothing because they didn't have damage yet. So they didn't have the extra die, and it just wasn't enough. So if you are going to rely on the Slaughterhousers for armor crack, they can't be your first wave. Because if it takes you a couple guys to get that first damage point, it becomes an uphill struggle. But
I remember that game. Actually, that was at PAX. I think you were playing against the old Man-O-War. And they had like armor buffs on them at the time, so they were not getting cracked.
Different game. I'm talking about one we had in the shop, but very, very similar. We had you played your Man-O-War into my Carver list, who also had a bunch of Slaughterhousers.
Oh, that's right.
All right, and now we're doing a run down here on the bottom. I've got that one guy in the back in that unit of commandos that were all knocked down, who wasn't and was capable of doing a run, and he was just able to get in that middle ground between those 2 zones, and that'll secure me both zones and the bonus 2 points for a total of 4.
I'm watching Pete's clock click down here under 8 minutes.
Oh, it's so bad. I'm taking so much time.
But dude, it is money well spent. At the start of this turn, you're like, okay, so it's 6-0, and I'm like, okay. We're gonna do the Kador thing, bite down hard, and see where we come out on the other side. Because I know that I am way up on clock right now, but it is going to take every second that I have to try and stay in this game. And man, I'm just the type of player that wants to play until the clock hits 0 and just keep rolling dice, even if I think I'm beaten. I want to take a shot at it because it's a game of dice, and sometimes weird stuff happens.
Yeah, we're here to roll, and we're here for those unlikely moments. That's the spice of Warmachine.
That's right. Taking care of everything at the start of my turn. We try to resolve fires and everything wherever they are, and I'm going to drop all my tokens. And so I think I end up upkeeping Superiority and Escort. I want to make sure if I need to commit Mama Bear, she can get there. Invictus has to die. Absolutely has to die this turn. Doesn't matter what I do. Last turn, I forgot to mention this, but before Savayrn moved up, he had the time and the line of sight to cast Puissance on a unit of the Shock Trooper Pikemen, which are now behind that building in the north side of the map. So I upkept that spell as well. And this might be the last turn I play in this game. It's going to be my feet turn. So Savayrn's going to get Precision Strike to walk up through these two guys in front of him. I tried to hook him around the building, but I didn't need to, and it was just going to be too hard to measure it, and yeah, I just figured I'm gonna walk him up in the center of the table. Thanks to Precision Strike, we can see through everyone, and we start landing the range 10 battle order that he has. That's kill order. That basically adds +2 to attack and damage. So, but it only works on your infantry. Your jacks don't get that. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to go low on battle group for this army, because I wanted to try and leverage some extra kill order power through the course of the game. So we're talking about out the turn and about how things are going to go, and I'm trying to figure out what exactly I need to get done in order to stay in this game and get the points necessary. And I need to clear this bottom side. I need to get all of those Pharaoh gone almost to a man. I think everything but one of them is contesting. And I think that on the top side, I've got to kill Invictus. I've got to score my my own objective on the 50 millimeter on the top side and contest everything, basically. So it's got to be a heavy attrition and heavy positioning turn, and it's going to take almost all my clock. So as we get started, I'm deciding my position for Savayrn, and I decide I don't need to be as risky as I was going around the building like that. I decide that I want kill order on the pigs at the bottom of the screen because they're going to have like a lesser amount of resources dedicated to them, or the numbers are a little harder, right? With tough, with the feign death, I don't want to take any chances over there, so I want to boost my chances as much as possible. Originally, I wanted to get a kill order on the slaughterhousers to clear space in front of Invictus, but I needed a kill order on Invictus as well. So the priority targets were down the bottom of the screen and on Invictus. I was just going to have to work my way through the slaughterhouses as best I could. So after the kill orders went down, I took a hand cannon shot. There was one slaughterhouser in the end that was not engaged, so I tried to take a shot just to clear him off, and we managed to take him off the board. From here, we're going to aim with the Bison. It's just going to try and do a double barrel shot, land a hit on the Def 12 or lower, actually, because they had Battle Lust.
Yeah, so they're 13 base, but they went down to 11 from Battle Lust.
13 is such a good number to have on defense space.
They weren't in Mark 3, but Mark 4 was kind to them.
I think I was remembering the old stats. So I figure if I hit that double barrel, it definitely kills the first one, and PAL 14 on Arm 16 is probably going to kill the other two. So that is my best shot. Instead of trying to go for those PAL 10 blast damages at dice -6, I'll just take one shot. Aiming, under kill, well, they didn't kill order, but aiming, it goes to like a Rat 7 on 11. I liked my chances at getting one shot. This allows me to clear enough space to probably bring in Mama Bear later on in the turn. But more importantly, with Precision Strike up, I'm covering that one suppressor that you can see over the house there, and that means I now have a lane where I can charge that Puissance unit of pikemen in. So we're going to get to them later and see how much damage they can do. For the time being, though, I really need to get some work done on the bottom side of the field, and I just need to kind of get a breath of fresh air, because the commandos down here are really stressing me out, man, and they got to go. So one thing Pete was nice enough to do was set up these really, really sweet spray lines for me. So I just roll in and we're like, brap, 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 and we just start ripping pigs off the board in here.
This is when you're like, feign death? What feign death? It's a spray.
Yeah. Oh, there's a guy behind you, look! These bullets only go in one direction, and that direction is right in your face. Sorry. So this is really what this unit wants to be doing. They want to be able to clear middling infantry models with their double sprays and kind of get out of dodge afterward with their reposition. And they want to open things up so your other models can do their job, and then give these gunners a second turn after that to rip some more things off the field with their ranged attacks. So we almost don't even need to roll dice here. I think on damage I'm a 13, and that basically breaks your armor without dice. So
yep, 14. I'm relying on that tough check as my only defense.
You made a ton of tough checks on this page.
I did. It's because I never make them. I save them.
There were so many tough checks made. I was having to reshoot models like left and right, and I was at this point I was just getting my I was just getting in my own head because I saw my clock start to tick down, and I've used about a third of the time that I have so far, just trying to make sure that I'm doing this as cleanly as possible and I'm putting everything in the right position, because I still have so many commandos down there to wipe out. There were 15 pigs that I needed to kill on that side of the board, and I mean, I probably didn't need to kill the one unit that had just ambushed, but it certainly felt like I was killing 15, even though it were only 10. So I start measuring out for the pikemen here. How far can they get? And I feel like if I can just move over a little bit, I can swing these two around with the unit placement. The hill makes it a bit awkward, but they're down there. They're punching some pigs and using their reach and their reach weapon on their pike, and the combination of the shield as a 1-inch melee weapon to try and bop people after they make their tough checks. So their two initial attacks are pretty good at getting them through some tough infantry, which is nice. And then I'm going to go back to the top side of the board. I'm going to try and figure out the puzzle of Invictus here. I've got a kill order on him, which is going to soup up all the infantry weapons, but how long, or how much damage can I really do with these guys? And I need to see how this Puissance plays out before I can understand what other kind of damage I need to put into him. Because
I don't think we mentioned that your feat also makes everything blessed, which is very good into Invictus as well. Right,
because I'm going to ignore his Hellrot upkeep. He'll get to choose a retaliatory strike on me at some point, and with them being base to base, they're up to ARM 18 now, so that's a chance of survival. They roll in and they start clipping columns off, and then I tell him that I've got beat back on because it comes in from Puissance, and he's like, oh my, I didn't realize that. So now he starts to think about taking his retaliatory strike before I push him out of range, maybe. The problem is I don't want to get him too far away, because if I can't kill that one Slaughterhouser there, and the pikemen can't quite do the job, I'm going to block off my chance at getting Mama Bear over to him. He might be pretty crippled, but I didn't bring the Savagery card, so I need to make sure I put him in the dirt for good. I can't have him, being there, getting repaired. I didn't look to see if you'd brought in the repair card at the time.
I didn't, but I do have that Tinker a couple inches away.
That's right. Oh man, those guys are pretty fast too. Anyway, we finally get that Slaughterhouser out of the way. So now I know that there's a lane here. Mama Bear can go up and take whatever she needs to take out of him. But I'm thinking, you know what, let me see what I can get done with these suppressors, because maybe I just kill Invictus with the suppressors. I dealt a lot of damage already. Let's see if we can drive the boot in with kill order and really just benefit from the fact that I have that infantry buff there, and maybe I can redirect my my Mama Bear to a different part of the board. Of course, by this point, I'm down to 9 minutes from 30, and over the past 20 minutes, I've forgotten that staying in this game means that I need to redeploy Mama Bear to the top side of the field, and I am rushing. And I see two boars right in my Warcaster's face, and I was like, oh my god, I need to kill these light war beasts here, because they're just going to come and running in, and I'm going to lose my Warcaster. And I was like, well, I'm out of models to do it with. I've got to I can't charge you, I can't shoot at you with this suppressor over here. I guess we're just walking Mama Bear. This is what I brought my Speed 9 Pathfinder Heavy Warjack character for. We're going to go in there and show these guys who's boss. And we're going to be outside of charge range of that Warhog while we do it. And I'm looking at suddenly, oh man, maybe I can clear this 30 millimeter objective in the center of the board. I think I have a fourth solo in the back that maybe can get there and score it. We're just lighting these models up. He killed something within 5 inches of Mama Bear. She's angry. She's Mat 10, power strength 20 right now. Those things were not surviving.
She did like 20 damage to that tanker.
Yeah. So I moved my Winter Corps officer up, and we discussed this later. This being a mistake, that officer needed to go and run and score that flag there that I had just cleared. And at some point, I took a sniper shot with my one remaining sniper at a random model that didn't need to die. And that sniper needed to run and score his 40 millimeter objective in order for me to not lose based on control points at the end of this turn. And with forgetting to move the solo, with forgetting to run and cap that far objective on the other side of the field with my sniper, and with forgetting to redeploy Mama Bear, back to my 50 millimeter to trade in for that other Warhog later, I think I look down, like kind of when the smoke clears at the end of this turn here, and I say to myself, oh boy, I've forgotten to keep up on scenario points. So we're talking it out at the end of the game here, but I was adding up the numbers, and that extra 2 points that you got really killed me, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the spice in this scenario, is if you can flank hard to one side and lock down 2 zones while contesting the other side and just keeping at least one of them from your opponent, that's how you win this one. It is a little lopsided. Second player in this scenario is definitely an advantage because that solo zone in the middle is pretty easy to cap if your opponent's army isn't particularly fast for that first turn to come up and contest it in mass, right? So that definitely worked in my favor. But overall, it was a skirmish heavy game. We had a bunch of moving parts going on. That Invictus bait up top was glorious. we were both so just kind of like, hey, it's got to happen. There's no way this starts just not.
I was like, all right, well, if we're in this far, we got to do something about this.
You want it to happen. I want it to happen. And neither of us is sure if it's a good idea.
Sometimes playing Warmachine, it's not about winning. It's about killing Invictus.
Yeah. My real goal with this game was to try these commandos, because commandos have gone through a couple iterations over the past few editions of the game. They used to have combined ranged attack. They've had a few POW and rules and point cost change, and it never really worked for them. And in this past pass, they brought them down from a 6-point unit, I think, to 5. Which is fantastic. They're not super strong offensively, but they've got Prowl, they've got Feigned Death, they ambush, they AD. At a point a dude, that's pretty good, I think. I kind of think 15 points for 15 guys, when you compare that to a 14-point Warhog, it's kind of roaming into auto-conclude. Like, I might be running that package for quite a few lists in the future. They're not good still, but they're dirt cheap, and I think that is their sweet spot. That's kind of what they've been chasing for years, and they finally found it.
They're models with both melee attacks and ranged attacks. That makes them flexible. They're cheap, like you said. They're point of model. They come in droves. They come in from the side of the board. They're not a bad unit. And sometimes you just need bodies. I'm finding that a lot more in Steamroller 2024 is that Winter Corps infantry might not be good. They die like dogs. Their 13 defense just does not keep them alive. And the fact that they have to be so close together just makes them prone to blast damage rolls. But for all their flaws, they are just good, cheap dudes that, if nothing else, my opponent has to sink attacks into them to clear a landing spot, to get to my heavy or something. The strength of the infantry in the Winter Corps doesn't come from their ability to actually accomplish things offensively. They're just an excellent cheap speed bump, I feel like.
They're costing your opponent resources. Armor skew's a thing.
Right.
Defense skew a thing. Number of attacks and body skew, it's a factor. If your opponent has, a bunch of like range 20 POW 20s, that's well and good. But if you've got 20 dudes and they've only got 5 attacks, that works in your favor.
Yeah, it does. So I wanted to chat about something else too. I know that it didn't come up in our battle report here, but Midas's feat is like one of my favorite feats in the whole game.
It's so
especially good. Because it's named Pet Cemetery. I love that. I love that he can just plop his battle group back into play. And I've been feeling like that could be a super useful tool in 2024 Steamroller, because you're like, oh boy, I just lost a control point over here, or you killed my heavy, and then you can take back their heavy with like slaughterhouses or something. And if you need to control that 50 millimeter that's there, you just go, all right, I'll walk up and I'll feat and I'll put this war beast back into play and control that zone.
Yeah, and his feat, a pretty common sentiment in the Pharaoh community is that Midas's feat isn't good, and that's just straight untrue. I look at every dead beast he gets as a free nuke, because like the Grash's feat, when he brings back a beast, it can't force. But Pharaoh have a lot of secondary effects. The Warhog can still increase his strength by taking that D3 of damage. It might kill him at the end of his activation, but that's 3 POW 20s. Like, assuming you're debuffing with Midas, he's got Cleaver, Tuss. You can place him wherever you want within, I think it's 5 inches of Midas. If you've got gun bores, they can stand and aim. And even if they don't hit, they've got that POW 10. You could theoretically bring a splatter bore and they can still set stuff on fire if you can set them up with a hit. Primal isn't an option because they do come back as undead, and the Primal Animus does specify living. So you might be thinking, why I don't take a battle boar in this list. That's the primary reason. But just being able to place these beasts anywhere you want, because they'll always be in an optimal position to aim or melee. It's way better than people give it credit for. There's another aspect to his feat where you can spend extra fury to increase the amount of health they come back with. Personally, I think that's a trap. I never do it. You're much better off throwing a debuff or a hex blast and just having 3-point beasts.
I wanted to put a bunch of Khador infantry on the table. I just painted these guys. Army looks great. I'm super happy with it. Privateer Press made some great models for Khador here. I had a great time showing them off and putting them on the table. Pete, thanks for the game. Anything to say?
Yeah, always a pleasure, Dan. I love Pharaoh. I love getting him on the table. Pharaoh February just ended in the Unlimited group. So if you're on Facebook, give some of those posts a skim. People are posting some good stuff. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching, and keep playing Warmachine. It's a great game, it's a great community, and we love to be a part of it.
Go to Nova. Buy your tickets early. Do it.
Thank you for watching. If you would like to check out some additional content, including the original video and audio of our battle reports to support the channel, please click our Patreon link in the video description below. If there are any factions, warcasters, or warlocks you would like to see on the channel, please let us know in the comments. And as always, see you on the next Tried and True Battle Report.